Editor Newware here. Listen, you guys, these video interviews are long. And to be fair, all of them are long. I mean, I've had ones that were an hour to 4 hours long. So I'm breaking them up. However, I couldn't tell you how many videos this particular interview is going to be in, but I try to break them up between 20 and 30 minutes. So I'll leave a link in the description for the playlist for this interview, as well as the sequence in which this interview video is. I hope you guys enjoy, so let's just hop right back into it. Being able to plug something into your brain that's able to receive information, your body being able to process that information and then relay that information back to you. Having something, this is where I said we're going to be within the next 50 years at the very least. If we don't, which we will, I'm not even going to say that. We will have sentiency. We will have the singularity. But I think within the next 50 years, we'll have a lot of technology in the field of at least medically, where people can run around like cyborgs, right? Arms that are completely like the video games and stuff like that. You'll have arms that can do things just as much or even better than a regular bio arm, right? And that arm will be able to communicate with you, your brain, and you're able to process that information.
But then
no problem.
But then that's why it's like I was saying, it's so different. That's considered now an object that can do different things that humans can really do. And that's what pits a lot of diversity because, I can't tell you like you pick up a random object. Well, I can tell you, right, with verbal words, but I can't just like in my head. That's not what you're picking up. You can't read my mind. That's just not how it works, And so when you have this AI, you're telling it to move it, right? And the AI is saying, hey, I moved, That's an object that's doing that. That's a different thing than what an actual human is. A human can't do that. The AI can't.
The argument, I think you got to bring it back to what this argument is. You're saying right now, I'm hearing what you're saying, and it sounds like what you're saying all stems on it's not capable of that right now. I'm saying
50 years.
At the most 50 years. I think probably a lot less than that. It will do exactly what you're talking about because the research is already being conducted and they're at we're at the fetus age of this technology, period. Like the medical applications for this type of thing has already been done. They're already doing it. There's already proven concepts. I'm saying if they're able, and with the rate of technology today, 15 years max, we'd be running around with people who have legs that are just as capable or probably even more. Period. That's within 15 years, we'll have the singularity. Period. So within 15 years, we'll have AI programs that have quantum physics embedded in them. Period. Mic drop.
So should we be excited or should we be concerned?
Both. I think we should be worried. Because if we don't have, let me put the camera back on me. If we don't have an ethics team at these companies that are focusing on controlling this type of technology, it can get out of control extremely fast. When you have programs that can soak in so much information. I don't know if you remember when Microsoft dropped, is the camera still on me? Let me look at the camera. Look, I don't know if anyone remembers when Microsoft dropped their AI program on Twitter and it was able to soak in information, questions, and it was able to generate its own response. People for the first day started doing racial slurs at it, racist conversations with it, and it became it was bad PR after that. It became disgusting real quick because the internet's terrible. Twitter is terrible to begin with. That's how fast it turned. It was an infant. It was like, okay, hey, everybody, I'm this new program on Twitter. I'm basically an AI chatbot. And then real quick, it turned real ugly. And it basically turned into a Proud Boy like that. Just like that. Because all it took was a bunch of random strangers on the internet that wanted to destroy a good project. What do you think would happen if you had an AI program that's capable of multiple applications that just wants to soak in so much information? And like I said, give it the human history in its entirety. And if you don't have an ethics committee that's committed to feeding it healthy information with the side of some BS, some badness, and you tell it why that was bad, and you teach it genuine ethics, similar to like a lawyer's ethics class, what are you going to get? I think it's extremely dangerous when you give something like that the power to update itself, when you give it the power to figure out things for itself. And it's not, to its core, trained not to harm or look bad on humans' decisions, and instead assist us with our decisions.
So why create it if you know that's going to be the ultimate reality?
Problem.
Why do we look to the stars? Why do we? Because we're curious.
Okay, but curiosity, are we going to kill the cat? I like, at the end of the day, it's like...
Oh, no. Wrong phase. The Schrodinger's cat. Is the cat alive when you put it in the box and you close it? Because there's two truths to that. It's either alive or it's not. But you won't know unless you open the box, but you can't.
But we were already seeing it happening, though. Is it not gradually happening? You just said it. They did a fetus test, and look what happened.
Absolutely.
So now what you think is really going to happen when...
Okay, but that's like the what was it? The Saturn project? Stern? I think it's the Stern. The what do you call that? The thing that's able to collide two atoms together, that machine, and they were like, it's able to generate black holes. Do you know the huge backlash that had? For the name of science, we were willing to risk all of humanity for essentially, it doesn't matter how much research you did into this, right? They were confident that it's not going to destroy the world, but there's always that probability. Even if it's like 0 to the billionth, 0 to then that last one, they're extreme. They're like, no, it's not going to happen. But guess what? It is this. It's like way over there. It's like what one? There's a one there. That one means it could happen, but they did it anyway. Why? Because we're curious and we're lonely. We're willing to take that risk. We would build let's say we were able to go and do space travel, and we're able to bend space-time as a propulsion system. But doing so, if we built it and we tried it, even if we took that system all the way to like Pluto, we're like, that's how far we want this crap away from us if we turn this thing on. There's still a chance that might affect everything in our system and completely throw the Earth off and kill us all. And we would still do it. Why? Because we're curious.
You want to know something crazy though?
What?
I want to say that we are curious is that, you know, we kind of just go along with things a lot of times, especially this newer generation. So a lot of people that are older, you know, especially like millennials or anywhere past that point where they didn't really fully grow up with technology around the whole time, I would say that they have a lot more stronger knowledge than many people that are younger than them, because I mean, obviously they've been around a lot longer than, you know, so that's that. But the more generations that pass, we start to forget things. We start to forget history. We start to rely on more things like technology. Like now, I promise you, if you walk up to like many people and ask them when did slavery end, they'll be like, I don't know. Let me look it up, you know? Right. But, you know, dang well, we asked our mom, our sister, they were, you know, like, or even just people far in the past, like they were alive. They know people that really went through that, you know? Like the more we start applying more technology, the less we're actually going to know. And you might think that like that we have AIs that, oh, we're getting smarter because the AIs can teach us this and we can remember it based off the knowledge they're going to give us. But then, you know, it's going to get to a point where we see it as, oh, this is going to be created. This is going to be created. There's going to be flying cars. There's going to be AIs walking, talking to us. It's going to be everything great. But the reality that we're seeing that we picture is not really what we're going to have. Mm-hmm. And the reason why this is such a problem, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand this, is because for me, I understand a little bit more. Like I understand like, okay, I have to really, you know, just because the AI can teach me this, you know, it's better off that I can hear human stories, you know, because what the AI is going to tell you from history is other human stories or the history that it was here. But
I got to clap back on that.
You have a clap back on that.
I got to clap back.
But just before you say that, right? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, the more time we go through, the more we're going to forget, the more we're going to rely on technology, because we're already like literally, I promise you can't even remember more than half your passwords without them being saved in your phone. Mm-hmm. But you know what people had to do back then? They had to write it down or hide it under a desk, or they had to put it in their wallet, right? But now it's like everything.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, everything Face ID, right? But now there's people that can, you know, literally do deep fakes. Like you said, like there's people doing deep fakes, then they can get into your phone by just faking a face similar and boom, they're in your phone. And that's what is so different from the AI and us is that, you know, when you go into a job interview, and it's like you said, you could mistake the AI as a human, right? But it's more like you're going to trust that when a person's walking, looks normal, come in and they talk to you, like as if in a job interview, you know, maybe, okay, this is a human being, right? But we'll say that we have an AI do your job interview online, right? Then you come in, it's not the actual person. It's crazy. What I'm trying to say is that the more time that we pass on, the more we rely on technology, the more dumber we're actually going to get. We're not going to get smarter.
I got to rebuttal that. I have to rebuttal it for several reasons, right? The same reasons why you can have technology that's able to relay information to you, right? Let's say you have that chip in your brain is able to connect to a neural network. And you're able to pull that same information similar to that AI program that's able to go to the warehouse and retrieve that same information. If we get to the point in our society where that could be possible, and again, we're at the fetus process of this type of stuff. And again, the fetus process in this was no different. If we follow the same timeline that we would like a phone, right? 20 years from now, it'd be more than possible. It'd be beyond capable. Meaning, if that chip was able to feed you information and your brain's able to process that, no different than if you were to learn it on your own. Imagine being able to wake up in the morning, ask a simple question in your head. I wonder if, you know, what's the temperature of the sun today? Right? There might be a satellite near and it's able to point it at the sun and it's able to give you that information. And now you have that in your head, right? Imagine if you had a localized network and your home where all the questions and that you have asked is now stored there, right? Like the passwords. You have 100 passwords for 100 different reasons. You're able to pull that from your home network, nice and secure. And you have to, let's say you're going somewhere and you need to pull up your bank, right? Either you biologically remembered it, but if you don't, you can ask your chip in your brain and you can go, I wonder what this password is. And it links to your home network and it gives you that same information. To think that that's not possible, I call BS because we're already at the fetus stage of these applications. When you have robotic arms that is able to pick up on your brain signals to move your arm, move this finger, and it's able to move this exact finger because they were able to code that. They're able to code your genetic response, right? They tap that. They know what it is. They know the code for that, the biological code to move this finger. And they were able to put that into a program and now move a mechanical part, metal, to do the exact same thing. How far do you think this is going to go?
But how many people? How many people you think would actually want to implement that to their system?
Absolutely, a lot of people. When you, hear me out. How many of us knows what it's like to live with what? Okay, imagine living how you are today. Something happens, and now you have half of your functionality. Imagine living 20 years without being able to walk, and you know what it was like to run. A lot of people in that situation would be more than happy to take on that system because it's like having a dog for the last 10 years. That dog moved with you about 4 or 5 times. It saw all the relationships you've had, the love that was lost in it. It saw you lose family members. And then imagine losing that dog. You're more than attached. Love is one heck of a drug, right? You don't love the dog like you love any of those other people, but you love that dog. That dog's love that you have for it is so unique. You would feel for it. There are people right now that have funerals similar to what they would have for their moms, their dads, their friends, their spouses, for a pet. And that's fine. But I would say that same feeling would be what I can only imagine for someone who was able to walk, who crawled, walked, and ran. Lose that whole opportunity to do that ever again. And you just told them, we can give this to you. You can walk, you can run, you can crawl, you can jump, you can climb, and we can give that to you. a lot of them would take that opportunity, especially if it was affordable.
I have a question then.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think every single person in the world should be equal?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
Why
not.
is that?
Why should they? Why should they? If all of us were equal, that would be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
What would be done?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Why would we?
But that's
not high. Like we're not hive-like creatures. We're just not.
So you don't believe that, like if I work 20 hours, and someone works 1 hour, they should get the same amount of, effect that I get? Or you think that that's kind of messed up? I worked harder than them,
Okay, let me make something clear. We are different. You could be treated equal. Okay. When I hear treated equal, is that what you said, right?
No, not treated equal. I'm asking, like, should we all be equal? Should we all have an equal portion of everything? Like, we should all have the equal.
Absolutely not. No. Okay, so I did hear you right, and this is my logic behind that, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm doing more than you, you don't deserve as much as me. Period. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that you might not be very skilled in something that I'm not as skilled in, but now you have to talk about contributions, especially to our society. Somebody that's able to bring people's hope cannot be valued the same as somebody who can build a house.
Okay.
Because hope will take us to the stars, as it did, right? And it was built off the backs of people who actually were highly skilled in certain areas. Somebody who was doing math, the women that were considered computers at that time that had to fact check actual computers, the women that actually fact checked the men in NASA at that time, cannot be valued the same as somebody who just wore a suit and implemented a system because they knew how to read schematics. They all played a role, but those roles were not equal. But the outcome was us going to the moon. You see what I'm saying? I cannot be valued like them at all because I don't know how to do any of that. But do I think I should be treated equally as an individual, as a human being? Absolutely. But my contributions to our society are completely different than anyone else's to an extent.
But here's the real truth of it all, right? It's kind of like what I was saying. You as a person, knowing how AI is going to advance, this is how you're going to use it. But it's like you said, 50 years from now, we're making this AI because us humans are mainly kind of lazy, our interests could change. Our interests can change. You're right. But creativity is more likely going to go down. It just really is because but as a human, think about this, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you said, we want the AIs to be able to help do things more efficiently. So we'll say that this podcast, the same topic, right, is being made by AIs, right? There's a Newware. He's an AI Newware, right? He's doing this podcast 3 times better than you. How you're going to feel upset, obviously.
I feel like I'm reaping the rewards. If he's able to do it 10 times better than me and I own the rights.
No, you don't own the rights. He's doing
then I would sue because you stole my likeness.
Okay, what if he's doing a different podcast? Not even nothing like you, He's his own person and the AI doing the podcast, right? Your podcast goes out of business. It's this AI that's just monopolizing like over podcasts. Is like reality of it all, you might be like, well, dang, it's just doing it better, But as humans, most of us, when things like that happen, we tend to give up and try to do something different. And that's just reality of, okay, it's like this, if I say, go ride the bike, right? And go do a backflip on the bike, and then you see an AI doing 200 of them, you're going to be like, well, damn,
Okay, but here's the problem with that logic and why I'm clapping back the way I have to. We as an individualized, we as our own species, right? This is why I say hope took us to the moon, right? When we talk about creativity is always it changes, right? Yeah. And human ingenuity will take us again to the moon, took us to the stars, right? I think the difference between us and AI is an artificial intelligence will learn from a situation, adapt and adjust, a human will be able to do the exact same thing, but will also think about new ways of interacting with it. If we had to go to war, like in Star Wars, where it's humans versus robots, the robots will have to learn a new situation and then adapt to it and soak in as much information as possible. Human ingenuity will give us split-second decisions that the program probably wouldn't be able to understand, even if it could. Even if it was able to adapt like that, just keep adapting and adapting. Think about it's adapting to what we're doing. We're always changing. We're switching it up. It can know tactic from A to Z, but it doesn't know if we're going to do A, then Z, then D, then F, then G. It could guess. And it could say, hey, if it does this, then do this. If it does that instead, then do that. But we could be like, no, we're going to do this, this, and this. Or we might say, hey, no, we're just going to keep doing this. And then when we think we got it and maybe we confuse it, we're going to do that.
But
Hail Mary.
Here's the thing, though. We can't win that war. And
yes, we could. Absolutely.
You think we can because it's different, right? It's like you said, if they start reproducing themselves, it's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, bro, because think about it, right?
And they
You can make another phone. You can make another camera, but you can't make another you.
Who's to say that? Who's to say that we can't get to, okay, who's to say we can't get to a point in our evolution where we can clone ourselves? Who's to say that we can't reproduce? We can change our genetic code where we can force the first 15, 16 years of our lifespan to progress in days, months, whatever.
And I hope Judgment Day comes first.
I mean, but seriously though, but seriously, if the first part of the process is natural, right? It's just that you can use that Casper system. You can go in, change a couple of DNA codes and speed up that process, and then go back in and readjust that process after it gets to a point. Let's say like the first 2 months of the fetus being a thing, right? Life being created. Mm-hmm. You're able to go in there, change the code. It speeds up the process to 16 years in 2 months. You go back to that system. You implement a new cell. That cell says stop and slow down, right? And now you can live the rest of your life like a normal human life. Now you have an army similar to the Clone Wars where you're able to literally multiply.
Well, then if humans are able to clone themselves like that, right? Mm-hmm. It will cause a lot more problems, mainly with pollution.
How?
It will cause problems with housing.
If we get to the point where we can do that, that's not going to be an issue anymore.
Unless we can find another planet, a different place, there won't be enough room for all of us on this earth.
This planet can sustain far more than what we think. The only issue we're having right now is that we generate too much waste because we don't care to take care of what we have at our current point.
And we're still not going to care.
That's also not true. I think this is where I say faith, hope, and human ingenuity is actually going to play a huge role into us sustaining ourselves to a certain point. To think that humanity as a whole cannot adapt to a situation is barbaric. It's idiotic. You today, right now, can go to the Sahara Desert, right? And with the right tools, you could probably survive overnight. If I threw you over there butt naked, you're not going to live. You're screwed, right? But if I gave you a book, I gave you the right tools, right, enough water to walk maybe a couple of days, you'll be just fine because you can adapt to that situation, right? But if you would just enough knowledge and your own ingenuity, you can make that happen. You can climb Mount Everest. If you have the right tools and the right knowledge and you really paced yourself, went nice and slow, and you had enough information, you can do that. You take a droid that's never experienced it, you didn't teach it, it's going to fail 1 billion times over.
But it'll learn though. Same with the human. But
a human has that leg up because we can learn twice as fast. The only difference between a program like a droid and a human being is we will probably learn 10 times faster than a droid will if you have it start from zero. If we give the droid, like, okay, if I gave a program the same tools I gave you, right? One, it probably won't need the jacket, right? If I designed the droid to be able to walk on ice, it doesn't need the boots. Probably doesn't care about the code, but even if it did, which it probably would, I would have to give it certain resources to warm its own battery because the batteries operate at a certain temperature. It's a given, and probably the circuitry as well. So it has to keep itself warm to a certain extent. You generate your own energy and your own heat, right? So the tools you need could be extremely similar than what the droid needs. And if I give it the same tools and knowledge of how to climb that mountain, it still has to learn how to interact with its environment. You will adjust 10 times faster than that droid would. But that doesn't mean that if I sent 6 droids out, and even if it had the same tools and it made it halfway, the second droid is going to make it 75% of the way. And if and by the 5th droid, if it doesn't make it to the top, the 6th droid's definitely going to know what to do. It's a wrap.
I think that's false. Because, but let me tell you why it's false, though. Why us humans wouldn't learn faster than the droid. Because it's like you said, if it has that cloud, it's just going to pull it out the cloud.
Mm-hmm. But it has to learn that, though.
But how does it have to learn it when they can just pull it out the cloud?
Data,
it's just data. It's just going to come. It's just going to work. It's the same. It's same with you. When you know something, you remember, oh, I'm just going to make this work how I know.
Okay. If the situation is extremely similar, right? All it takes is just a slight variation in that data for it to fail with the droid. With the human being, it's extremely similar, but you have the mental capacity to immediately adjust to it. If your footing is slipping, unless you design the droid to be capable of adjusting to that, it's going to fail. You have enough balance to correct yourself on the spot. You could recognize, depending on your own reflexes and the knowledge of what you're doing, you can adjust right away. But period.
You can't.
You can.
You can't.
You can.
You can't.
Why you say you can't?
It's kind of just like what you said with the baby. It's like if you put them next to each other, the robot is going to learn way faster than the baby. It's going to just grab his resources. The baby, our minds are not built like that. I mean, babies can learn. There's different types of humans that learn things faster and slower, but the robot is going to directly just take that knowledge and use it and apply that. Us babies, we don't. We can't just magically start speaking English. I come out doing, hey, what's up, pop? That's just not how it works.
That's also not true. That's also not true. That's true? There are babies, right? There are people who don't use the language as we know it, right? A societal agreed upon language. How do you think the us that was throwing rocks and stones communicated? Grunts, different forms of body. I mean, body language is a thing, very similar to sign language, right? We figured it out. At some point, a baby will figure out how to crawl. You as a parent, you're not crawling around on the ground showing your baby how to do it. The baby just figures out to interact with its environment. You naturally know what to do. The same way a dog, even if you take a 1-day-old baby dog, a puppy, never seen its mom, eyes haven't even opened yet, and you just feed it, your human interaction the whole time, it's gonna figure out how to walk. It knows how to bark. It has its internal programming, right? That's that biological understanding. It doesn't like a cat. It understands that a certain pitch is no different than if it was on the hunt and it had an animal for food. It's the war cry that animal gives. That hype, the squeaking sound, they love that. They go crazy for it because that's their natural instincts kicking in. No different than a human being.
It is different.
No different than a human being. Human beings are the same thing. You want to live. When your back is to the wall, that fight or flight response, you're going to do the exact same thing. The only difference is with AI, it has to learn that because it doesn't care at first. It doesn't. But it learns that the same way that you still had to be in that situation to understand it. As a baby, you want to go from point A to point B. So what do? You figure out, if I move my arm like this and my feet like this, you learn to interact with yourself in your environment to get from point A to point B. AI is no different.
It is different. Because the reason why I say this is it's like you said, but the baby is gonna take time to develop. But it's like you said, when the AI is in a situation like that, it's just gonna pull everything it already has and it's gonna apply it. And it's gonna be more efficient because it's going to just keep searching and searching. It has to get
to that point, though. You see what I'm saying?
It's going to already be at that point with a cloud like that.
Okay, you're right. If
when you get a new phone, right? Mm-hmm. This is AI's, right? When you get a new phone, right, and you want to set it up, it's going to ask you the first few things. What's your Google stuff? What's this? What's that? But when you log in, everything's there. Mm-hmm. And when everything's there, everything can already be able. It's not like you just get the new phone. You open your Google account, and everything you have to start from fresh. That's not how it works.
How is that any different? Really think about this. I want a response from both of you. What he just said, how is that any different than when you're on a computer, you're in, what would you call it? Fruit Loops, or whatever it is, whatever the FL Studios. When you're on FL Studios and you want to know how to do something in specific, what do? You pull that information from the cloud, or you figure it out on your own, and you data around on the program until you figure out how to tweak it the way you want to do it, whatever. AI is no different. It went to the cloud to figure that information out because guess what? Somebody either told it how to do it or it learned how to do it on its own. And it got an okay or a proper response. That was correct.
But it's gonna
you did the exact same thing. So like you, right? You wanted to learn how to make a kick beat, right? So what did you do? You Googled it or you figured it out. And then guess what? When you figured out how to do it and you liked it, you got the okay response in your brain. That was that's what I'm looking for. That's correct. So now what? Right? The next time you want to do it, you know how to do it. It's no different. It's the same efficiency. Do you agree? Yes or no?
No.
Why?
And the reason no is because I still had to search that up. I had to learn it, and then I had to do it. AI is going to do it more efficiently than the human.
The process you took to do it is no different than what it took to do it.
No, that's not true.
That's
because
not true.
For one, AI, especially since we're talking about kick drums and we're talking about music, I mean, just look at it right now. You tell an AI to I need you to render this file down, or I need you to import this session, or better yet, I need you to quantize this beat. AI is willing to do it within seconds.
Yeah.
A human is going to take a few minutes. It's going to take a few seconds, depending on the beat, depending on the style, or whatever it is. AI, perfect example. There's a website out there called Lender that you can mix and master your stuff. AI does it instantly for you, like in seconds. And you have 3 different versions. You can pick a warm, you can pick a high one, or a balanced one. If you're gonna master a track, you can't just automatically just render it the same way and just assume it's all gonna sound the same. You have to treat it different because each song is sonically different. But AI, it only has 3 steps from what we see so far. You just choose which one is more suitable for your ears or what you're looking for. But it gets it instantly. It's not something that, I got to think about it. It's technology. So he easily gets it. So it's not gonna go through the same step as a human as, hold on, let me find the right plugin that I'm gonna use for this one. It already has like a preset or like a template sort of just already set up there. Data that's already in the brain that's just gonna process it and just push it out. And now you just choosing whichever version you think is suitable for you. So definitely when it comes to that, we do not render and process the same way. For one, once again, you're collecting data. Yeah, we're collecting data, but that's still something that we have to render. We have to like marinate in our brain and get it. And it takes a minute. AI can easily get that information within a few seconds or a few days, depending on what it is, depending on the data. It takes time for us as humans, just like going back to the baby. A baby ain't finna learn how to walk in no day. AI is going to learn how to walk in a day. Maybe when they were doing it back in the day, like you said, previously in the years, it took a second. But now it's like you program it, you give it the same data that you figure out for the other AI and say, hey, this is the data right here that you need to use. As a human, as a baby, it's going to take a second for it to learn how to walk. And then on top of that, it's like a baby doesn't necessarily, he learns how to walk on his own, but you have to teach it that. You have to say, hey, stand up. Or every time you drop down, you pick it up and you have it walk. And then eventually it remembers that, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. AI is not going to go through all that.
So I got a couple of responses to that and why I got to debunk that. Not me. I can't. When I say we, I mean y'all, the opposition. All right, let me make something clear. Us as humanity that cares about this, we overestimate and underestimate what artificial intelligence is capable of when referencing in its learning capabilities. If you look in, it's not hard. The answers are always there. In the video I'm gonna share to you, if you ever care to watch it, the guy that worked at Google, right, the executive that had that conversation with the program, he shared a short story about how that program was also doing a task. It was learning how to do something. I think it was like picking up a ball. Months. It took it months to just pick it up. And in the aha moment that got to him wasn't the fact. They wanted it to pick it up, hold it, and put it back. I think that's what it was. I could be wrong, but it was something along the lines of it needed to pick something up. The aha moment was when every day he said he walked right past it. He watched it, try to do it. The ball would knock down and whatever, right? He said the aha moment is when it picked it up and it didn't even complete half of what it was supposed to do. It just picked it up. It finally, months, every day, nonstop. It's trying to pick this thing up. It finally picked it up. 24 hours doing this nonstop. It took it months just to pick it up. It didn't even put it back. But that was the, oh my God, it did it moment. The sheer amount of data it had to go through to, one, interact with whatever the arm was, to interact with the ball, and then know it picked it up. That's the sheer amount. That's crazy. And the fact that somebody who knows this program and says, oh my God, it did it. To anyone who doesn't know, that's like, okay, whatever, it picked it up. No, you don't get it. It learned how to pick that up on its own. We just designed a code. We said, we want that. And that's it. And it learned how to do it on its own. And it took it months. And in technology years, 24/7, nonstop, that could be equated to years, no different than a baby. And especially when you're allowing this technology to learn how to interact with this environment completely on its own without telling it what it is. I don't think people understand the sheer amount of time that takes. When you look into programs that have to learn to interact with its environment, it takes such a long time to do just one thing right. And you're right. If you teach it, that's different. You can teach it if it does this right. You know, it's like programming a thing to do this right. It's like the car industry, right? You see those robotic arms, those yellow ones that swing around, does all the welds, can pick it up, all the crazy crap. They programmed it to do it. Because in that environment, that car is always going to be going at a certain pace. It's always going to have the same materials. Everything has to be tracked a certain way. So it knows it can do the exact same motion. And if any anomaly happens, it's able to adjust, because guess what? That's that perfect environment. That's that perfect technology. It still needs to be serviced. Don't get me wrong. But that's that previous conversation where this thing is perfect because it does it exactly how it should. And because even though it costs $10,000 for this one machine, guess what? You're not paying somebody full-time work to make mistakes. It's not going to make the same mistakes. It won't even make a mistake, most likely. Right? But hear me out.
False.
Okay.
Negative.
But hear me out. The issue we're having here is that program, depending on how you're implementing it, it's all it has to do is do it right once. And then it can do it again. And it can do it again. It can learn. It can do something slightly different and learn how to react to that response. No different with a human being, right? Again, if I told you to climb this ladder, this is how you do it. 3 points of contact, put this leg on here, then climb this leg, then move this arm, then move this arm, right? I taught you how to do it. You're going to pick it up 10 times easier, right? I can verbally tell the robot the same exact thing, and it still has to go through so many different, okay, do I grab it like this? Is this too much pressure? I could break the ladder, right? If I tell you, a human being, grab this arm, grab this truss, pull yourself up, then grab the next one, then pull yourself up, you're going to know how much dexterity you're going to need, how much pressure you need to pull onto this, right? You're going to figure out immediately how much you need to pull yourself up on, right? You're going to know not to break this, because if you break it, you're going to fall. If you verbally told a robot that's never been in this environment to do this exact task, it has to, one, know what too much dexterity is. It needs to, secondly, know if something that it's interacting with just broke. You see what I'm saying? There's so much more information that an AI has to learn and understand, especially when it's interacting with an object and simultaneously understand with itself, versus a human being that already has that knowledge in them. You know this cup is crap. You squeeze it too much, when you pick it up, all the contents are going to come out. An AI program has to learn not to squeeze this too much, but just enough to pick up this exact object, because it picking up something like this is different than it picking up something like this. That's exactly why when Elon Musk talked about his cars, he's like, you think it'd be easy to program a car to drive itself, right? All the lines on the road's the same. But what you don't think about is all the crappy lines that's been painted over twice, road construction that has multiple different lines. You don't talk about the faded lines on the road. You don't talk about, different areas might have similar lines, but slightly different ones. The signs may not exist in this area. The list goes on and on and on. Curves that are too low, too big, bright lights, depending on the area. The list goes on. It has to learn. But you as a human being, it doesn't matter if you're in that new environment. You have a higher probability of immediately understanding and interacting with that than an artificial intelligent program does. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. We really appreciate it. A special shout out to Green Screen Studios here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Listen, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can direct message us either on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. It's always going to be chocolate_espresso_. Listen, we really appreciate you. I said it once, I said it twice. I'm going to say it a billion times if that's what it takes. If you guys want to reach out to us, especially if you know anyone or if maybe you want to be interviewed about your job, the goal is to really teach a lot of youth about the different opportunities that are available to them. College is great. It's always going to be great. Not everybody wants to go to college, or maybe college just isn't on the table right now. So I want to push as much content that pertains to jobs and jobs that may or may not require college. Maybe you just need to network. Maybe you just got to put a lot of work into the beginning as an entry-level person. But, you know, I really look forward to producing as many interviews as I can and posting it. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.